Hurry up!
Timeless love.
Beat sensitivity pain fast with Sensodyne Rapid Action for clinically proven relief in 60 seconds.
It is new, refreshing, engaging, and informative.
Follow trends in Kenya's cooperative movement in a new show known as Ushirika with Alex Chamwada.
We begin with the story of 2NK Circle.
Our members' livelihood has truly improved. They are able to save, access loans.
This was a game changer.
We will bring you case studies from across Kenya in various sectors.
We take care of the banking needs of all the cooperatives in Kenya.
Ushirika, every Tuesday at 6:45 p.m. on NTV.
Buy a value-added plot of land at the Garden of Joy off Kangundo Road, deposit 700,000 and get 16K and your Istanbuzi is sorted. Call us on 0790 300 300.
This is NTV.
Greetings and salutations. Thank you for joining us on your world this Monday morning. Now, excuse me, just a point of note, we are literally smack in the middle of the month. That's how fast the days are going by. So I hope you're having a good one so far. Now, every couple or every parent that receives the news of their pregnancy hopes to bring forth a healthy baby into this world. Thing is, the journey of pregnancy, and this I speak from experience, is a miracle in itself. For some parents, they are able to carry the baby to term and all is well. For others, and for different reasons, the children are born with special needs. What does it take to come to terms with this reality? How do these parents cope with bringing up a special needs child and still keep their heads above water? We shed light on this reality in a moment. My name is Gladys Gachanja, and this is what else you can expect on this broadcast. As I mentioned, we focus on the parenting, well-being, and growth of special needs children. Meet Manasseh, who was diagnosed with DMD at the age of 7. The parents shared their challenges taking care of this child.
Mama.
This condition is abbreviated as AMC. Find out what it is, how it affects someone, and how special care needs to be given to be affected. Away from that, this casino in Connecticut brings the COVID-19 vaccine closer to those who need it. Thank you for joining us on this broadcast. Our question of the day to you is, do you know someone or are you raising a child with special needs? what are some of the challenges you face? If you do know someone or you're raising a child with special needs, tell us some of the challenges you face even as you're bringing up these special angels. And remember that hashtag is new normal on our social media handles. And you can also reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. But before we get to that informative conversation, let's take a look at the impact of COVID-19 around the world. And this morning, that number stands at 120,413,886 confirmed cases around the world. Out of that number, 96,962,952 have totally recovered, and unfortunately, 2,665,226 deaths have been reported due to COVID-19. So how does it look like in the country? Well, 113,236 confirmed cases, 88,405 totally recovered from COVID-19. And unfortunately, that number in deaths seems to be getting or increasing by the day, and it stands at 1,913 deaths. So do remember, as the Ministry of Health is reiterating, and we all need to, is that do not stop wearing your mask, social distance, and of course, wash your hands regularly with soap and water. And of course, if you do not have that on a regular, you can use your alcohol-based sanitizer. I'd take a look at some of the stories making headlines this morning. And atop his humble wooden pigeon coop overlooking the majestic Giza pyramids in Egypt, Omar Gamal and his older brother keep about 40 pigeons on the roof of their family building in Nazlet Al Saman in western Cairo. Handed down through the generations, the practice of domesticating pigeons stretches across borders from the banks of the Nile to North Africa and beyond, with people not only training birds for competitions but also serving them up as a dining delicacy. Omar Gamal, a pigeon breeder, says any pigeon breeder knows how to take care of his pigeons by monitoring their food. You should treat pigeons very gently. A pigeon that flies away from you for more than 3 hours is not doing it because they are scared of you. They know exactly what they are doing. When it comes to feeding time, they know it's food and they come close without being afraid. But at the same time, they are afraid of you when they fly away. Elsewhere, thousands demonstrated in Algeria's capital and other cities Friday as a revived protest movement takes root again in the North African country. The pro-democracy movement, known locally as Hirak, first mobilized in February of 2019 and within weeks forced then President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to abandon a bid for a fifth term and resign. It called a halt to protest early last year as coronavirus restrictions took hold, but returned to the streets late last month to celebrate its second anniversary, protesting every Friday since. Demonstrators who are demanding a sweeping overhaul of a ruling system in place since Algeria's independence from France in 1962 chanted slogans calling for a civilian state, not a military one. There were a few voters at polling stations at the Barthelemy Boganda High School in Bangui. The Central African Republic has begun voting the second round of a legislative election as it battles back against the rebel insurgency in the government has called an attempted coup. Godfrey Mokomanede, the former chairman of the National Elections Authority, said, unfortunately, unlike on the 27th of December, there is no real enthusiasm. But generally speaking, this is what happens when people don't necessarily have an electoral culture. Ethiopia, it gave out its first coronavirus vaccine doses on Saturday as the health ministry warned of an alarming increase in cases. Africa's second most populous country last week received 2.2 million doses of the AstraZeneca jab manufactured by the Serum Institute of India, and it's targeting health workers during the first phase of its vaccine drive. Some of the first shots were administered at Eka Kotebe General Hospital in the capital Addis Ababa on Saturday. I was waiting for this moment because I believe this will help us to protect ourselves to some level. This is according to Marta Tadesse, a nurse at the hospital. And officials also organized kickoff events in 6 other regions, including Tigray, where the Ethiopian military is battling forces aligned with the recently ousted regional ruling party. State-affiliated Fana Broadcasting Corporate reported. Now, Ethiopia rather has so far registered 172,571 cases of COVID-19, the 5th highest total in Africa and the highest in East Africa. It has recorded 2,510 deaths.
We are happy that we are being vaccinated today. On the other hand, the vaccine which is available in Ethiopia is not enough for the whole community. So our community has to wait for some time. So it means the pandemic is not yet over. We're going to have patients coming to our hospital maybe for the next 6 months or so.
Well, let's switch gears and focus on our conversation of the day, and this is parenting special needs children. Now, to help us understand how this shoe fits, in studio, we have Alice and George Lekimani, who are caregivers to a son called Manasseh, who lives with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, abbreviated as DMD. We are also joined by Esther Masika and Edwin Saikwa, who are caregivers of baby Tunu, who lives with a condition called arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, which is abbreviated as AMC. We'll be getting to see them in a moment. And of course, we are joined to help us understand the intricacies of giving care to these special needs children, but still keeping your head above water as a caregiver. And to help us along with this is Grace Kariuki, who is a psychologist. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Now, before we get to the intricacies of it, I mentioned that Alice and George are taking care of Manasseh. Here now is his story.
Kimani. I'm a mother of 3 boys, married to George Likimani, and my firstborn is 23 years old, and my secondborn just completed his course in a technical institute. And now we have Manasseh, my lastborn. Manasseh being our lastborn, he was born 11 years ago. After 4 years, he joined his nursery school, up to 7 years when he reached class 2. Then we started noticing something was really wrong with him, because anytime he walks, he could fall. And when he was feeding, he didn't like to feed himself. So most of the time, I was feeding him. So I was like, maybe because you are the last born, anyway, let me feed you. So I didn't know it was a problem. At the age of 7, that is when I realized that there was something amiss, because he could not climb the school van. So I started lifting him and dropping him, and I was like, what is wrong with him? So in April of 2017, we decided to take him to hospital for checkup, if there is anything wrong. I thought he had a problem with his vision. I didn't realize there was anything wrong. So we took him to Kijabe Hospital, and we were with his father, and the doctor told us, I don't have good news for you. And I was like, why? Because he just told him, sit, stand. He could sit well, yes, but standing, he could struggle to stand. So the doctor told us, your son is developing a condition And this condition is one of the rarest condition, and a condition that has no cure. He just told us at the age of 8 or 9 years, this boy will be confined in a wheelchair. I tell you, I don't know what I did. I lost my breath. I could not talk. And then he told us, maybe I could get you a counselor. And I told him, no, I don't need a counselor now. Let me just go home. So I was so desperate. I was so discouraged. I was so down. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, now, maybe I'm going to lose my son. Maybe he's going to die now that this thing cannot be treated anywhere in the world. What am I going to do? Imagining now that after 1 year or 2 years, this boy will not walk. You try to picture him in a wheelchair. And he's still walking, but now that picture is coming into your mind that now he's going to be in a wheelchair after such and such a time. That thought itself broke my heart, broke my flesh, broke my every part of the body. I was really worn out. I started preparing for a funeral because of that depression. I didn't know I was in a depression. I went and bought about 100 plates, these big sufrias, and I thought now, because this thing is not going to be treatable, then maybe he's going to die, so let me prepare. Just in case it happens, I have everything, and I did so. At the age of 9 years, he sat on that chair one Saturday, and he told me, Mom, do you know I can't stand? And I was like, what? Yes, Mom, I cannot stand up. And that is how it started. Just like that. So we had to get him a wheelchair. After the introduction of the wheelchair, we could not take him to school because most of the schools around, they cannot, they did not have ramps. So he could not use a wheelchair in school. So we started homeschooling him. For him accepting, it was really hard. But during that time now, we were told how to manage this condition. We have to take him for physiotherapy. It's only managed through physiotherapy. He used to go for physiotherapy, hydrotherapy, and he came to understand himself. He came to accept himself after meeting with others who have the same condition. He sleeps late at around 11 at night and wakes up late at around 10. So when he wakes up, he's brought here. He has a special table, that one over there, and then he sits here. He watches television and also do his assignments if he has, and he loves drawing. He draws a lot. And then from there at around maybe after lunch, he walks out. You can see what we have done in our compound to make him move out freely. So he goes out, and then he can even go to his grandmother with his wheelchair. DMD can say it's a very expensive condition because everything about a DMD boy is special. Starting from the wheelchair, very expensive. We have an automated wheelchair. He has a mobile toilet, so that whenever he feels like he wants to help himself, we can move the toilet. Even bathing him in the bathroom, we have a special seat so that he doesn't slide in the bathroom. I don't know what my sister-in-law did, and I want to appreciate her so much. She came here with my uncle called Collins. They brought me some money to buy a hoist of 100,000. Let me say so. I want to appreciate them so much. When he sees others riding their bikes and he could not, it made him feel bad. There was a time that he tried even to commit suicide because he didn't want to see others playing and he could not play. But after that, we just encouraged him, and we thank God that it's over. He's now strong.
That is the story of Manasseh, who is now 11 years old and lives with a rare condition called Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is abbreviated as DMD. Before we even get into the details of this condition in a moment, let me bring in Grace. Just listening to that story and listening to Alice talk about her journey and that of George bringing up this child and coming to the realization that he was a special needs child. Why is it important to actually face up what your reality is vis-a-vis what you expected?
Absolutely. Good morning, Gladys. I am glad to be on the show today. Well, what we need to understand is that there is a really deep feeling of grief. Like she said, immediately you go into a period of shock, a period of numbness, a period of confusion. You just don't know what to do because your normal, what you used to know, the dreams you had about the child, puts you in a very difficult space. And obviously, a lot of people would not be able to understand what you're going through. And so the doctor who immediately told her that let me refer you to a counselor is because he understood this is going to be a mental anguish period. And obviously, we call that grief. It's a grief and loss issue because you have lost things that people may not deny. There's a lot of death that has happened in that space, and most of it is the death of what you expected, death of expectations, death of dreams, and not even knowing. Nobody is prepared for something like that, and this child has been normal for the most part of his life, up to the point where he is a young man who is supposed to go to school. So you can imagine how difficult that was. And also the process of grief, you don't even know how to explain, and people don't know how to support you. And we all know that in dealing with loss, the biggest part of healing loss is actually the support that we get from the society, from the people around us. And when you don't get that, because people cannot understand how to support you, you feel very, very alone. And so my heart really goes to her, and thank God that over time, the human spirit, you know how we are, we develop resilience as we get the help that we need. But the process of grief that we go through when somebody dies is the same process a parent who is hit with information like that would have to go through, which is really
okay, Grace. We seem to
very gruesome and very deep.
Okay, we seem to be having a problem with Grace's connection, but we'll be crossing over to her in a moment. Even as we understand this condition, DMD, Father, and if we can have those graphics on the screen so that at least we can explain to those who are hearing about this condition for the first time. And we'll start off with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which is what Manasseh lives with. Muscular dystrophies are a group of diseases that make muscles weaker and less flexible over time. Now, Duchenne muscular dystrophy is the most common type. Now, out of that, you might be wondering how or what causes this. The gene that makes a protein called dystrophin is normally broken in this case, and this protein keeps muscles strong and protects them from injury. Some of the symptoms, of course, these are different from one patient to another, but the most common are a curved spine, also called scoliosis, shortened tight muscles in their legs called contractures, headaches, problems with learning and memory, shortness of breath, sleepiness, trouble concentrating, and truth is, there is no cure for the condition, but treatment options are available to alleviate its symptoms. Now, George, we had Alice speak about the journey that has been bringing up Manasseh. Let's hear from you. When I talk about some of the symptoms and how you saw Manasseh's life start to change from the age of 7, what are these things that you saw and wondered what was going on?
Thank you very much. The first thing that we noted and personally became a problem is frequent falling, and he could hit his forehead, and every time he could swell. Before the healing takes place, the other day he has the same. So that was paining, and I felt there's something wrong with my son. And just like my wife said, we thought it was a vision problem. That's why we took him to the hospital.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, at the hospital, as we heard, the doctor said, okay, this is bad news, but the truth of the matter is your child is living with a rare condition. As a father, what was your reaction at that point?
It was very bad. Very discouraging. In fact, from Kijabe Hospital to Kikuyu, we did not even talk with my wife. There were 3 of us in the car. We kept quiet. A lot of problems going through my mind. I didn't know what to do. It was a challenge. It was not easy, I can say that. It was not easy. Until we came to confirm from Kikuyu Hospital, we met another doctor. He confirmed the same, which was said by the first doctor at Kijabe Hospital. Yes.
And now the reality dawned in.
Yes.
So as a father, what's going on in your mind at this point?
Well, a lot of things happened. Number one, it threw me out of balance. At some point, I was admitted in the hospital because of not accepting. It was not easy. But pole pole, I found myself accepting and moving on with life. Yeah, it was very discouraging.
Okay.
Yeah, because the steps that we were told, the first step of now tiptoeing, now going to a wheelchair, the other two which are not very easy to accept. It was not easy for me as a parent. Yes.
All right. Now, Alice, you're the one who tells the story, and it looks like you're the stronger one of the two. But the truth of the matter is, you brought this child to the world. To see him have to go through this is very hurtful as a mother. What were you going through as you saw Manasseh move from point A to point B?
It wasn't easy. Seeing him the way he was, and the plans that you had as a mother for him, especially him being the last born, and him born 11 years later after the others. Of course, you had big plans. This is the boy I would raise the way I want him to be, to go to the best school, to have everything best for him, because actually he's the last born. And noticing him and realizing that he has a problem, I tell you, it was so devastating. The first 2 years of my life, I was in great denial. I could not accept. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I went into depression, and I didn't know I was in depression because I didn't want to see anybody. Even walking on the road and see you coming my way, I would rather take another route to avoid you. I'm a Christian. I didn't go to church for 6 months because God lost meaning in my life. And I was like, God, if you are really there, if you are really existing, why did this happen to me? So I didn't want to hear anything about God. When someone tells me God knows, and I would just ask him, which God? Which God are you talking about? A God that will put my son in this situation. So I didn't want to hear anything about God. I didn't want to hear anybody talking to me about my son, because I was like, I don't know, am I cursed or something? Such things. So it is not easy at all. I know, yeah.
Okay, I hear you and actually empathize, because as a parent, I can imagine that you want the best for your child. And again, as I said, pregnancy is a miracle. At this point, when you got this diagnosis, had you ever heard of this condition ever before?
No, not at all, not at all.
And never seen it in
never seen it in the family, never seen it in the community, never seen it anywhere.
Okay, now Grace, again, listening to them, you can hear both were experiencing the same thing but differently. Now, how do you debunk that amongst a couple?
Right. So the first step of helping a couple that is going through such a situation is to help them understand that there is a deep feeling of loss. It's a grief and loss issue. And of course now most people do not understand that is what you are hit with, because you have lost something that is very, very important to you. And one of the things that we lose as parents if we end up in a situation like that, we lose the confidence that we can protect our children. And immediately we are thrown into a space of helplessness. And when we get into helplessness, there will be anger. There will be quite a bit of anger towards yourself, towards others, and even towards God, as she has said. And you begin to question everything in life. And then there is also the internal feelings of you as a person. So there is quite a bit of feeling like you have failed. There is something wrong with you. You also feel that Mungu ananionea, there is a vendetta against me by the world, by God, and other things like that. And when you are, especially if the couple is not careful, that can break a home, because the man is feeling absolutely helpless, and men don't know how to deal with those feelings, because they don't talk as women do. And women will get together, they will look for support, they will talk, they will pray. But when a man is faced with a situation of grief and loss where they feel, and here I'm talking about loss of ability to protect your family, then they go into what he talked about, that you go into this imbalance and you don't even know how to gain back your balance. So the first thing that as a therapist I would do with a couple like them is to really help them understand what they are going through. Eventually, dealing with loss and grief so that you can adjust. And I like what Alice said, that it took her 2 years to be able to get over the denial. And I know from my work that's what it takes you, about 2 years to really accept that your life changed, that something you lost something, because after the acceptance, that's when you can be able to adjust. What happens is that physically we do adjust and we start to do what we need to do to survive, but mentally, psychologically, emotionally, we are unable to adjust. And once the acceptance happens, we start to adjust. We start to feel it's okay. We can, and now a routine, even a mental and an emotional routine begins to take place, and you no longer feel the deep emotions. I usually say in Swahili ni emotions za kuonewa, nasikia nimeonewa, and so you begin to accept and you begin to move into now advancing and see and looking now at what you can do to make your life more functional. But also with the functioning, there is a feeling of joy, and there is a feeling of vitality for your life. So it is true, Alice. It actually takes you about 2 years.
Okay, now let's hear from the other couple that is joining us, and this is the story of baby Tunu. This morning on Your Voice, Brian Bushiri spent some time with Esther Masika and her husband Edwin Kipto, who are caregivers to their daughter Tunu, living with the rare condition of arthrogryposis, or AMC. Here's the story.
My name is Esther Masika. I'm a mother of one. Tunu is my daughter here. She's brought so much life and light into my life. I just thank God for life. She has a condition known as arthrogryposis, which basically affects her joint movement. And with that, it requires a lot of occupational therapy. She is doing about 3 to 4 sessions a week. Now, with the COVID that came by, it was so unwelcome, because now that meant we had to cut that off, because ideally it's a doctor who's coming from the hospital, and hospitals are where sick people are. So you sort of feel like you don't want to endanger your baby or the people living in that home. So that has been really tough on us. Also, where income is concerned, that has been really tough on us. Bringing up a baby with a condition and a birth defect on top has been really hard to maintain. You see, these are things that are not covered by insurance. It means out of pocket. And with COVID, it affected our business, which is the fitness, and we're in the fitness industry. So it was a financial burden. We lost our financial independence, I would say. Right from day one, she had to be casted. From casting, she had to move on to this shoe that she has to wear for 23 hours. From there, we had to do, we've done 2 surgeries so far. Sorry, not surgeries, but procedures on her leg that really have been nerve-wracking. So how we have managed to put a smile on her face, they don't understand how we managed to do that. And we encourage them so much to take their kid out. To, you know, we are all about social motivation. We don't hide Tunu in the house. We're always out.
With the club foot, it has a maximum of 5 years to rectify. But with the underlying condition, it's a lifetime thing. As time goes by, we see what we can do. But as for now, we can deal with the flat foot. That takes like 5 years. But the underlying condition, to be honest, we can't give it a time. You know, it's a lifetime thing.
Mine is to be a voice of change to all moms out there. So I recently launched an awareness campaign known as the Bold One Out, which is a movement of extraordinary moms raising little angels with extraordinary conditions for an extraordinary purpose. These children are a gift from God, one, and whatever purpose has been put here on earth is to teach us who call ourselves normal that perhaps we're not so normal as we think. You know, Tunu has her own abilities. So I need moms, and I want to encourage moms not to compare their children with quote-unquote normal children. It's about encouraging Tunu's abilities. It's about encouraging her participation. It's about counting her in everything that she does, as opposed to, mtoto wangu hafanyi, you know, really dwelling on the condition of the child. I think there's a lot that can be done, especially on the detection part. Yes. Because you want us to be prepared. You want that mother to be offered psychosocial support, not a condition like mine where at birth is where all these big words are being thrown at me. And we advocate for policy. Policy. Why? Because policy creates the framework that is needed. So you'll find access to healthcare is expensive, and so you find the mom will sit back because, hey, are we going to buy unga, or are we going to use this money for fare to take her baby to? So we need to see how to lessen that burden on those moms. Diapers are expensive. Food is expensive, you know. So how is it that we can lessen that burden on the mothers? How can we encourage more fathers? This conversation needs to be held because many moms who have reached out to me are actually single-handedly raising their children. So where are the dads? Yeah, this is nobody's fault, right? But God uses these children for His purpose. Yeah, we're just custodians, and it's for a time. Shika, mama. What I would tell parents who are raising a child who's been born with a birth defect or a rare condition is it's okay to acknowledge, it's okay to grieve. Acknowledge your loss. Mourn the baby that you are expecting, because you did have ideas, you did have dreams of how you'll go on holidays and put on outfits and things like that with that child. So it's okay to acknowledge that that's not the child you were given. But at the same time, encourage yourself. Right? Encourage yourself to get out there, to accept the situation. She's still a gift from God, and she's here with you, right? And you are the one who's been chosen to be that child's parent. Because if it was not you, then who is it that you would be like, I wish mtoto angepatiwa? Who is that person who you would say, I wish mtoto angepatiwa huyo mtu? Touch this one. Please seek help for the child as early as possible, because you'll find that some of these birth defects that children have been have been born with are correctable. Clubfoot, cleft lip, name them. Those are correctable disabilities. So you don't have to deny the child a normal life because you did not make the first move and a bold move to go to hospital just to find out whether the child's condition can be corrected.
The story of Esther and Edwin, even as they talk about baby Tunu, who lives with arthrogryposis multiple congenita, abbreviated at AMC. Just to understand further what this condition is about, it's a term used to describe a variety of conditions involving multiple joint contractures or stiffness. And its causes, well, it's unknown, although it is thought to be related to inadequate room in the uterus during pregnancy and low amniotic fluid. The symptoms, again, vary from one child to another, but muscle contractures of joints commonly take place in the wrist, hand, elbow, shoulder, hips, knees, ankles, and there's also muscle weakness throughout the body and spine curvature. Just as a DMD, this condition has no cure, but treatment options are available to alleviate its symptoms. Let me bring in Esther and Edwin at this point and start off with you, Esther. You have such a big smile on your face speaking about the journey of baby Tunu, but let's be real here. The moment you got the news that baby Tunu was a special angel, what came over you?
Self-blame. You know, you wonder whether you did everything possible to ensure that your baby was safe. I felt that I perhaps did not educate myself much about my pregnancy journey. In my family, there's not been any history of children born with any condition, so I think it was an assumption on my part. And wow, so it was a real shocker. I was very disappointed. I wanted to blame the doctors. I wasn't sure, is there something that they had done to my baby during the birth? It was really bad. And when I woke up and the baby was not there, I assumed, okay, maybe because she came 2 weeks early, that there was something wrong with the baby. And then I just got to find out, you know, I passed her in NICU because she was unrecognizable, totally, with her hands behind her back. Then she had her feet facing her, you know, her chin. And I was like, what is this? What happened to the baby? And it was the first day I learned of a birth defect.
Okay.
And they just started talking. Surgery? And it was really confusing because I'm like, what surgery? For what? And they're very tough decisions that I had to make on the first day. And so this was very heart-wrenching.
Okay, so this is your experience. Let me hear from Edwin. Edwin, you've gone to hospital and baby Tunu is a special needs child. What's going on in your mind at that moment?
Thank you, Gladys. The first time I met Tunu after the delivery, it was so hard to understand. Tunu being my firstborn, when the doctor came, I remember the nurse called my name and said, who is the father of the child? I went, I received the child. The first thing I noticed was her feet were not straight. So I asked the doctor what was happening. The doctor just smiled. Then he told me, your daughter has clubfoot. It was my first time to hear about clubfoot, and I didn't understand what was going on. Yeah, so it was around midnight. So we were told to come back in the morning so that the doctor will explain to us what's happening. Yeah, that's how it started.
All right, and as the doctor is explaining to you what Tunu is dealing with, what are you going through at this moment? Because at that point, I'm sure reality dawned on you.
Yeah, it did. It was my first time to hear about clubfoot, and when the doctor was saying that, I was not relating. So I was disappointed. That's not what I was expecting. But I had to accept.
Okay, and for you, Esther, how long did it take between now noticing about the clubfoot and now seeing other contractures in other parts of her body?
It was about 6 months later that we were referred to a pediatric orthopedic who at first glance just told us Tunu has arthrogryposis. And the name was so long, he wrote it down. I remember Googling, making sure I don't miss one letter of the alphabet that he wrote down. And he explained to us that this is the underlying condition. So first things first, he's like, we need to do a scan and see whether her hips are in place, because it tends to be very problematic when the hips are out of place. But we thank God that she was well, and we walked the journey. He's walked the journey with us all the way up until we went to a specialist clinic, where now, Gladys, they told us, I know you've done so much with her feet, but she's not doing well. We have to begin this process all over again. And we began treating her clubfoot all over again. That meant 6 weeks of casting, doing another tenotomy, putting her into the bar and brace for another, 3 months for 23 hours. And now we've just recently graduated to 12 hours. So it's really sad that it has taken us 9 months almost to get the correct treatment for Tunu. And you beg to wonder, isn't there a standardized way of treating clubfoot? How is it that the doctors were just okaying the process all along, when now we get to the specialist clinic, they're like, no, sorry, but we have to begin this again.
Okay.
So the expenses, the trauma of going through it all over again.
Mm-hmm. And we'll talk more about that journey in a moment. Grace, let me bring you into this. These two couples are bringing up special needs children, and they have different conditions, and they experienced the reality of this differently. One couple 7 years into raising a child, this couple right after birth. When you listen to Edwin and Esther, are you surprised that this were the reactions that they were facing when they found out their child was special?
No, I am not surprised at all, because that is, and it feels hard to say that's the normal way that as human beings we will experience these kinds of occurrences in our lives. And so the process of grief and your grief, but you see, because we associate grief only with death, then you don't know that it's okay for you to go through whatever you are going through. And people around you, they don't know. When people die, we know how to come and mourn with you and say pole and all that. We know how to do the mashakaya. We know how to walk with you through that grief. But when you have a situation like this, we do not know how to help you go through the process. So nobody is understanding that you're grieving, you are mourning, and neither are you aware that that is what is going on. You just know you have feelings that are very uncomfortable, and you feel absolutely out of balance, and you feel like you're going crazy. And you wake up and you think you are in a dream, and you hope that you will pinch yourself and the dream will be gone. So there are these emotions that we are experiencing, plus other emotions that we don't know. That sometimes you go through numbness. You're just going through the day like a zombie because you don't understand what it is. And then there is also the issue of people are not going to allow you, and there is the word, the phrase that we use for this kind of grief, the disenfranchised grief, because it's the grief that is stigmatized, that the society does not see as a source of grief. And they don't know how, and because they don't know how to deal with it, then they don't embrace it with you. And so you can imagine now, even when you go to the doctor, like we are hearing, you go to the doctors and they kind of are nonchalant about it. They are not giving you the understanding that they can relate or they can empathize with how deeply you are hurting. And you have so many questions. What was it that I didn't do right? Was it something that I could? And you feel like you have brought your child, you have actually failed your child because you are the parent, and this is a very innocent human being. And so there are so many emotions that are going. There are so many questions that we have that have no answers. But like we are hearing, once you begin to find that there are ways that you manage and deal with the situation itself, then you begin to feel a little bit more at peace, and you begin now to put together a plan. But definitely you go through those feelings of absolutely I don't know what to do, and that is the big word, helplessness, which can lead now to hopelessness, and now the issues of depression can kick in, plus anxiety, the fear of the unknown. And so living a day at a time, and I loved to hear as both parents are talking about focusing on what now can be done rather than what cannot be done, what we have lost, and we move now from the victim space where we are just talking about the suffering story, but we are now looking at the survival story, the surviving story. What is it that we are going to do now in order to look at this child the way they are, we accept their condition and walk with them?
Okay, and we'll get to the survival stories in a moment. Remember, our question of the day is, do you know someone or are you bringing up a special needs child? What are the challenges you face? That hashtag is new normal on our social media handles. And yes, you are talking to us. If you can have that feedback, we have Sophia Bashir who says, I'm raising a special need child and I know many mothers who are in these shoes. We face challenges, but we learn to call them reality because this is who we are. Stress, denial, finances, heartbreak, fear, stigma, not to mention the many challenges that we face. This is us, the special needs society. Thank you, Sophia, for sharing. Millie Weke says, I teach yoga for the special child and sometimes it's easy with lots of fun and joy, but mostly it's sad, especially when they're sick, on their periods for teenage girls and they don't have someone to help them. For those who cannot communicate when they are sad, makes me feel even more sad, especially kids with autism or cerebral palsy. In general, it has its ups and downs. Millie, we celebrate you for the work you do in helping those living with special needs. Rose Angira says, I'm a special needs parent raising a Hans challenges. First, this journey is financially draining. Everything around a special needs child is very expensive. The assistive devices, the medication, the diapers, the care, etc. Rose continues to say, the second challenge, emotional challenges for us parents raising our angels in this judgmental society that still sees disability as a curse or sins of the parents. The third challenge is mental challenges. This one is deep. We need counseling centers for parents of children with disability. Diagnosis, is served with no prior counseling. Rose, we hear you, and you continue to say, and for the rest of our lives, we work hard to figure out what the diagnosis meant. And the fourth challenge is stigma and discrimination. We lose friends and family. Most special needs parents have no friends. People judge and see your child as a burden. Bure kabisa. Lack of disability awareness is another challenge. We need more of this. There are many. Let me leave it there for now. Rose Angira, thank you for being so candid about your journey. Zoltan Farah says, I have one here in Mariakani who is mentally challenged but loves me so much to a level of following me up to my workplace. The young man hates noise. Zoltan, thank you for sharing. And the last one for now, Blixen Koi says, first, stigma from community. Secondly, very expensive medical services, especially epilepsy daily tablets. Thank you for Koi for sharing your journey with us, and keep them coming. That hashtag is new normal, and you can also reach us using those numbers at the bottom of your screen. Now, we'll quickly take a short break here on Your World. When we come back, as Grace is putting it, we'll be looking at the survival stories of these parents. Yes, there are challenges, but what have they had to adopt to actually ensure that they cater for their children, but also keep their heads above water? We'll be right back.
Just one capful of Dettol is enough to disinfect surfaces and protect your family and your home. Dettol, tested effective against COVID-19.
Make it right.
Get 500 MB free kila siku and never miss a moment.
What would you do if you could do anything?
What are people going to say?
People like me don't win competitions like that.
In those days, parents thought a girl was better off in the kitchen than in the classroom.
I made a promise when Mama was dying. Even if it means you're gonna get sick. What choice do I have?
I'm looking for a man who can take responsibility for his actions.
The future belongs to those who build on what's come before.
Mama Stevo, where are the kids?
I think they're upstairs doing their revision.
Oh, you guys are here. Maria and Steve, which revision papers are you doing today?
Baba, mimi nashughulikia maswali ya marudio ya somo la Kiswahili kutoka kwa gazeti la Taifa leo.
Na wewe?
I am working on the mathematics revision paper from the junior sport magazine of the Daily Nation.
Wow, this is wonderful. Are the revision papers from Taifa Leo and Daily Nation working for you guys?
Yes, Dad. Wanauliza maswali yao kwa njia nzuri na nyepesi sana.
And the questions are in tandem with our syllabus.
Dear parents, invest in Taifa Leo and Junior Sport for KCPE and KCSE revision papers. Kwa maswali ya gazeti la Taifa Leo, usiukose uhondo huo kila Jumatatu hadi Jumamosi. In our Junior Sport, it's every Monday. Do not miss out.
Try Panadol Advance for relief from headaches, body aches, and fever. With Panadol's Optizorb formula, the tablet gently breaks down in the stomach, quickly absorbs, and starts providing pain relief in 15 minutes. For fast and effective pain relief that you can trust, try Panadol Advance.
Thank you for staying with Your World. My name is Gladys Gachanja. This morning we're talking about parenting special needs children, and we have Diana, or rather Alice and George Likimani, who are caregivers to Manasseh, who is an 11-year-old boy who lives with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, abbreviated as DMD. We're also joined from the comfort of their home by Esther Masika and Edwin Kipto, who are caregivers to baby Tunu, a girl who has arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, which is actually abbreviated as AMC. And of course, helping us with this conversation this morning is Grace Karaoke, who is a psychologist. Thank you all for joining us on the same. Now, before we went to break, Grace mentioned that you go through the denial phase, you go through the mixed emotions after you find out that your child is living with special needs. Then it gets to a point where you now come to accept and now start walking the journey with him. For you, Alice, what helped you along?
Okay, when my son was going for physiotherapy, he met a certain friend, and they were really happy together because they were suffering the same condition anyway, so they became friends. And then the other friend stopped going for physiotherapy. So Manasseh was actually disturbed. Mom, my friend is not, didn't come today. The following week the same. So he kept on asking me about his friend. So I had to go and look for this friend. So we went to, with the father, we had to ask someone where we could find that friend. And we were told where they were. and we were taken. We visited the family to find out why they were not coming for physiotherapy. So we found a lady with 2 boys having the same condition as Manasseh.
Both boys?
Yes.
Wow.
The firstborn and the secondborn. And now the lady was not able to come because the